Hello, Mr. President. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to listen to my thoughts on education policy reform. There are some reforms that I think will benefit our country very much, and I look forward to sharing them with you. And the first thing that I think is essential that we do is increase funding for our schools. So there's a lot of different aspects of our schools that are severely underfunded. So the first thing I think we need to do is increase funding. And first off, we need to increase funding for preschool programs. We had an initiative started with former President Obama, and he did a lot of work to get students into preschool. And there's a lot of research that shows that having students start at a younger age will greatly increase their chances of succeeding throughout their educational career. It's essential to increase funding for our low-income schools. This allows for a lot of different programs to get started within these schools. Particularly allows for more teachers in these schools. It gets them higher salaries and better benefits, which will increase the teacher retention. But it also allows for a more individualized education. And I think there's a lot of studies as well that show that when students have more one-on-one interactions with their teachers, they develop bonds and they develop a community and a relationship that really helps the student feel valued and can help them continue their education. And one last thing, when we add more funding to these schools, it can help with supplying resources like textbooks, which a lot of students in these low-income schools are not able to afford. I also think it's important that we increase the funding for certain colleges to help make them more affordable for students, especially who come from our low-income schools. As we increase the number of students that graduate from high school and get them into colleges, we can make a lot of our students smarter and get them into higher paying jobs, which will increase our economy. One of the last areas of education that we need to provide more funding for is STEAM education. So STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. I think we particularly need to put more funding into arts education. There's been so many studies that show that when students are able to interact with the arts and learn more about them, they develop more connections with the rest of their peers and they understand themselves a lot more, which I think is really important as we grow into a more individualized job market where students are creating their own jobs and arts help develop their creativity, which I think is really important. Some other options that we need to do for educational policy reform is we need to provide counselors and special education specialists in all schools. Particularly after seeing a lot of the mass shootings that we've seen in recent news, providing counselors is really important, as well as special educational specialists. Schools that are underfunded are not able to provide these kinds of resources, and it is crucial for helping students achieve the success that they deserve. So that's something that we need to get started on. Another aspect that will help our educational policy grow is to increase our emphasis on multicultural aspects of our curriculum, so adding more foreign languages and allowing students to encounter different cultures. Because the U.S. is a melting pot of a lot of different cultures, and we see a lot of immigration happening to the United States, I think it's really important that we learn to be more accepting of other cultures, and starting by learning a new language or studying a different culture is a great way to begin that journey. One of the last things that we need to do for our educational policy reform is we need to train teachers on discipline measures, which to make them more responsive and less punitive. So we have our school to prison pipeline, which is a big issue in current politics, and which is detrimental to our economy because it sends all these students to prison and they are not contributing to our economy, and they're draining a lot of money out of it. So by eliminating these really harsh discipline measures, we are able to, again, form a better community with our students and a better relationship so that they can help contribute positively to our economy. Now, you might be asking about how we can measure our success. So one way I think we can measure our success is an increase in teacher retention. Once teachers start to stay in schools longer, most likely because of their increased salary and benefits, you'll notice a lasting impression on the relationships between the teachers and students, and on the community of a school as a whole. We could measure our success in a decrease in student dropouts. So the less students that drop out of our schools, the more chance that our students will have to develop their education in a positive manner. Another way is to increase our high school graduation rate. So the more students that graduate from high school, the more that we have with a higher level of education. And also a decrease in total domestic student debt. So the less student debt that our students have when they go to college, the more that, again, they can contribute to the economy after they graduate college or just go through a couple classes. There are a couple points that I think the federal government needs to stay out of education, and I think this is standardized testing. We've too long had our hands in standardized testing, and it has proved unsuccessful, and it has put so much stress and anxiety on our students that it's not a productive endeavor. So we need to take our hands out of that. And also charter schools. I can see the benefit of some charter schools, but the idea of for-profit education is not something that we should be invested in. Our students are our prize and our treasure and our future, and we should not be trying to make money off of them. All right, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to listen to my educational policy reforms, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.